Good morning. I'm Councillor Michael Brooks, Chairman of the Lincolnshire County Council, and I would like to welcome you all to this meeting and the Council on the 18th of September 2020. It's not the 18th of September, I'm sorry. It's this meeting on my notes are wrong, on the 11th of December 2020. To enable the smooth running of this virtual meeting of the Council, I will shortly propose to suspend some of the Council's procedure rules. Head of Democratic Services, Nigel West, will then carry out a roll call to confirm attendance at the meeting and support for the motion. In particular, to avoid numerous roll call votes and the length which votes take, I propose to have a roll call vote on agenda item 12. Motions on notice, and otherwise to conduct votes on other business on the agenda in the following way. I will ask if there are any councillors abstaining from the vote to indicate in the chat function by typing abstain. The Head of Democratic Services will identify any members abstaining for the benefit of the public. I will then ask if there are any councillors voting against the motion to indicate by typing against in the chat function. In the absence of votes against, I will declare the motion carried. If there are any votes against, there will be a vote by roll call. If any members wish to call for a recorded vote on an item of business, they should type the words recorded vote into the chat function. I therefore propose that the following council procedure rules be suspended for the duration of the meeting. 13.2, right of the chairman to require motions to be written down and handed to him. 15C, every proposition to be decided by voices or show of hands. 15D, where the decision of the chairman is challenged on voices, requirement to have a show of hands. 15F, standing to call for a recorded vote. 19.1, standing to speak. And Rule 19.2, Chairman standing. Do I have a seconder?
I beg to second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Right. Nigel West, Head of Democratic Services, will take over.
Better.
Nigel.
Thank you, Chairman. I will call out the names of the councillors in alphabetical order. If councillors could confirm that they are present and whether they are for or against the suspension of those procedure rules. Councillor Adams.
Present and for the change to procedure rules.
Councillor Aaron.
Present and for.
Councillor Ashton.
Present and for.
Councillor Mrs. Austin.
Present and for.
Councillor Bowles.
Present and for.
Councillor Mrs. Bowkett.
She's lost her IT, Mr. Chairman, Nigel, at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Bradwell.
Present and yes.
For. Councillor Brailsford.
Present and for.
Councillor Brewis.
Present and for.
Councillor Bridges.
Present and for.
Councillor Mrs. Brockway.
Present and for.
Councillor Brooks.
Present and for.
Councillor Bootroyd.
Present and for.
Councillor Corey.
Present and for.
Councillor Clark.
Present and for.
Councillor Cook.
Present and for.
Councillor Cooper.
Present and for.
Councillor Coupland.
Present and for.
Councillor Cullen.
Present and for.
Councillor Davey.
Present and for.
Councillor Davies.
Present and for.
Councillor Dobson.
Present and for.
Councillor Fido.
Present and for.
Councillor Fleetwood. Councillor Griggs. Councillor Griggs. Councillor
Well, there's
Grocott.
an IT problem, Chairman, and they're trying to get him sorted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Grocott.
Present and 4.
Councillor Hayes.
Present and 4.
Councillor Hill.
Present and 4.
Councillor Kendrick.
Present and 4.
Councillor Key.
Present and 4.
Councillor Killy.
Was that me? Sorry, I can't hear you. It's,
Councillor Killy.
yes, present and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Kirk. Councillor Kirk.
Present and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Lawton. Councillor Macy.
Present and 4.
Councillor Marfleet.
Present and 4.
Councillor Matthews.
Present and 4.
Councillor Morn.
Present and 4.
Councillor McNally.
Present and 4.
Councillor Mrs Newton.
Present and 4.
Councillor Mrs Overton.
Present and 4.
Councillor Oxby.
Present and 4.
Councillor Parker.
Present and 4.
Councillor Parkin.
Present and 4. Chairman, can it be noted that I have a meeting at 1 o'clock, so I'll probably have to leave at about 10:02.
Yes, thank you. If you could just indicate in the speak when you're leaving,
I will.
that would
I
be
will do,
great.
Councillor Brooks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Pepper.
Present and 4.
Councillor Perrotton Williams.
Present and 4.
Councillor Pole.
Present and 4.
Councillor Mrs Rawlins.
Present and 4.
Councillor Christopher Reid.
Present and 4.
Councillor Robert Reid.
Present and 4.
Councillor Renshaw.
Present and 4.
Councillor Rowe.
Present and 4.
Councillor Skinner.
Present and 4.
Councillor Mrs Sneath.
Present and 4.
Councillor Spencer.
And 4.
Councillor Spencer. Councillor Spratt.
Present and 4.
Councillor Stokes.
Present and 4.
Councillor Storer.
Present and 4.
Councillor Strengle.
Present and 4.
Councillor Mrs Talbot.
Present and 4.
Councillor Thompson.
Present and 4.
Councillor Trollope-Baloo.
Could you please confirm what we're voting on? Because I've only just joined the meeting as I've had IT problems.
Yes, it's.
Do you want me to?
Yes, please, Nigel.
Yes, we're voting on the suspension of those procedure rules in the order of proceedings.
Agree.
Sorry, who was that?
Councillor TB.
Oh.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Present and 4.
Councillor Whittington.
And jolly good it is to see you too, Tony.
Present and 4.
Thank you. Councillor Woolley.
Present and 4.
Councillor Linda Wootton.
Present and 4.
Councillor Ray Wootton.
Present and 4.
Councillor Worth.
Present and 4.
Councillor Young.
Present and 4.
Thank you, Chairman. If I could just, Councillor Mrs Pokett, have you managed to connect? Councillor Pokett.
Nigel, I've just given her Simon's number because he's not been able to get hold.
I'm back in now. Sorry, I can't. But I'm on my I'm not being able to unmute very well, so I do apologise. So I'm present and 4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Mrs Lawton, have you managed to connect? Councillor Lawton, we'll come back to you. Councillor Spencer.
Chairman, I've just received apologies from Councillor Spencer. He's been unable to leave work. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's carried then, Chairman.
Right. Thank you. That formally that vote is carried then. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is one, apologies for absence. Can I ask Nigel to report any apologies, please?
Chairman, I have apologies from Councillor Spencer.
Thank you. So, have we any other apologies that anybody knows to? No? Right, move on then to item 2, declarations of councillors' interests. Councillors should indicate if they have an interest they would like to declare by typing speak in the chat function. So we have, I'll come to...
Councillor Cook, Chairman.
Yeah, Councillor Cope, I see.
Cook, Councillor Cook.
Sorry, Councillor Cook, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to declare an interest for the motion agenda item 12, I believe. I work for the Lincolnshire Partnership NHS Foundation Trust, so I'll be abstaining from voting and I won't participate in any debate.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Noted. Councillor Key. Councillor Key.
In item 12 as well, I work for the local government, but it is a line declaration of interest. So I'm just making sure that I have to do it that way. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Noted. Thank you for that. Can't see anybody else indicating. No. So I take it that those are the declarations of interest. And obviously, as usual, if any member remembers an interest as they go through the agenda, just type speak in the box and we'll get it declared then. Item 3 then on the agenda, the minutes of the meeting of the County Council held on the 18th of September 2020. The minutes of the meeting of the County Council held on the 18th of September 2020 be approved as a correct record and signed by the chairman. Can I ask if there are any councillors abstaining on that proposal, please? If you could type in chat, into the chat box, abstain.
None indicated.
None indicated. Can I ask therefore, are there any councillors who wish to vote against? Please type against in the meeting chat now. I've got an abstain.
Councillor Spratt.
Councillor Spratt.
Abstain.
Yeah, thank you. But no one against. Therefore, there's no one against, so I have not received any indication of anyone wishing to vote against. Councillors Spratt has abstained. Therefore, the motion is carried unanimously apart from the abstention. Thank you. Then on to item number 4, Chairman's announcements. Christmas is a time for reflection, a look back on the year that has passed, and to think about what is to come. Nobody could have predicted that what 2020 had in store for us with the coronavirus pandemic, and this year more than ever, we will take time to reflect and truly appreciate what we have. We have seen the devastating loss of lives all around the world. We've also witnessed our local communities giving their time and support to help others in need. The NHS staff, care workers and other key workers are continuing to work hard and tirelessly to keep us all safe and well. I continue to feel so proud of local government officers and our members for their efforts in ensuring important council services are delivered to the usual high standard. Hopefully there is now light at the end of the tunnel with the rolling out of a vaccine. But it is important that we continue to follow the guidelines and adhere to the rules of hands, face and space. I was pleased to see remembrance commemorations being observed, albeit in a very different way to normal proceedings. I was honoured to lay a wreath on Remembrance Day at my local war memorial in Swineshead on behalf of Lincolnshire County Council. Finally, I would like to wish you and your families a very Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year. Thank you. Right, I'm going to move on to item 5 now. Statements by members of the executive. They're detailed as reports in reference 5 in the agenda previously circulated. And I have Councillor Eddie Pole indicating that he wishes to speak. Councillor Eddie Pole.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like to inform members that since my statement was prepared, we managed to secure the introduction of the permitting system at the household waste recycling centres to enable residents to make a booking for their van or trailer on the appropriate day with the appropriate waste. And they'll be able to do that as from Tuesday of next week. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pole. I have Councillor Katrina Cope. No, sorry, just saying that we're on to item 5 now. So we're moving on then to item 6, questions to the chairman, the leader, executive councillors, chairman of committees and subcommittees. I'm anxious to allow a good spread of questions across the virtual chamber within the time allocated. I intend to allow 45 minutes for questions. I'm expecting councillors to be disciplined because of the time available. When invited to ask you questions, councillors should switch on their video and microphone and switch them off again when they have finished speaking. So I will move on to the questions now. And the first question is, I would like to, before we move on to the rest of the agenda, I would like to remind you that as members are unable to, sorry, I'm moving on at a pace and I should be dealing with the questions now. Councillor Rob Kendrick to Councillor Martin Hill, OBE. Councillor Kendrick.
I'd like to ask the leader if he could give us an update on the coronavirus situation in Lincolnshire, please.
So, sorry, Councillor Kendrick, could you repeat that? It wasn't coming through very loud and clear. If you could perhaps get nearer to your mic, I think.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to ask the leader of the council if he could give us an update on the coronavirus situation in Lincolnshire.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, yes, happy to do so. Right, as members are probably aware, the rates in Lincolnshire, the overall rate in Lincolnshire is still slightly above the national average. The good news, however, is that East Lindsey, which was very high, has come right down and is quite low now. Boston also is still high, but it's coming down, albeit much slower. I think the concern is in Lincoln, where there has never been a very low rate, and it is beginning to increase again, and currently is, I think, in number 7 in the national pecking order, if you like. So we are obviously doing all we can to get those rates down across the whole county, and we'll probably be doing some extra measures in Lincoln to see how we can also target those areas where the rates are high. In terms of the tiers, as you're probably all well aware, this is done now on a fortnightly basis, and what happens is the government in the off week where the decision isn't made is looking at the data for that week. So that will mean on Thursday the 17th, the government will announce what the changes are in terms of the tier system across the whole country, including Lincolnshire, and that will come into effect 1 minute past midnight on Saturday the 19th of December. But obviously, where the Prime Minister also gave a commitment to look at it below county level, and I think that it's still quite clear that certainly in South West Holland, and also probably South Kesteven, there is a case for that they possibly might have a case for going into a lower tier. I think the rest of the county, there isn't a case. So I think my prediction is that certainly all those other districts will remain in tier 3. And obviously it will be up to the government to decide what tier those two councils in, or indeed whether they feel the whole county should remain in tier 3. But that will be a decision for the government. And then obviously the testing I've talked about, and obviously at the moment we are looking at some extra testing in the Lincoln City area, but also we'll continue with hospital, care home staff, children's homes, residential schools and other local government services in the voluntary sector frontline, food manufacturing and key retail, which are more easy to do because they are all in sort of settings where you actually are aware where people are. The other main issue going on at the moment is, of course, the vaccination programme, which we're very happy to see started earlier this week at Lincoln Hospital. They are still delivering the AstraZeneca vaccine, which, as you all probably are aware, that is more difficult to store and administer in terms of the temperature it must be kept at. That is being rolled out across Lincolnshire at the moment. And then when the other vaccinations come on stream, there is a programme being developed how that will be rolled out across the whole county using GPs, but also using vaccination centres which will be put up. And that obviously is being run by the NHS. Thank you, Chairman. And could I just wish everyone a happy Christmas and obviously, as the Chairman said, just continue to make sensible precautions and encourage others to do so.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. Right, the next question is Councillor Robin Renshaw to Councillor Martin Hill, OBE. Councillor Renshaw.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
All our residents expect LCC to show high levels of leadership in this COVID pandemic. Physical real-time evidence on the streets, and we're reminded that all our work is evidence-based, is that 2 meters has shrunk to 2 centimeters. Yes, 2 centimeters, where a significant enough majority are showing a blatant disregard for social distancing rules. And let's face it, there was a party not far away from County Hall, so it just reaffirms that. What urgent action across the whole council and its services and partners will the leader now take to prevent further mass infection spread? I ask this on behalf of my residents, as national huffing and puffing has not got the message out to all parts. The evidence is inside supermarkets and schools, outside schools, and some of our shops, and sadly on our footways, where there's increased footfall because of exercise regimes. There is scant recognition that this plague is serious, and it takes no prisoners, and anybody and everybody could be its next victims. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I mean, obviously, we continue with our partners to look at the publicity campaigns and to remind the public of the rules and advice. And certainly via the LOED board, the Lincolnshire Outbreak Engagement Board, which is a partnership board of all the agencies in Lincolnshire, we meet and discuss how to address these issues. In terms of enforcement, that is very much down to the police and district councils, but we also cooperate with them in terms of the enforcement powers we have in terms of standards. We haven't got any direct enforcement powers to do things, although of course the police do have various, and ourselves have various indirect ways of working. All the district councils have been given funding, including Lincoln City Council, for to look at the policing and engaging, shall we say, with the public to advise. And certainly, I think 4 out of the 7 district councils, excuse me, now have COVID marshals who are basically engaged to work with the public and advise people and retail outlets and such as to how to make sure that everybody is complying with the rules. I think you're dead right. There are the vast majority, I think, of people are complying to the rules, but there is a minority which aren't, and obviously particularly when people are out in the streets, it can be some quite shocking sometimes to see how close people get. So what I would say, there is a programme that is being dealt with via the district councils with their COVID marshals and other measures, but also we are doing joint communications just to keep reminding people what they should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Right, the next question is from Councillor Kate Cook to Councillor Richard Davis. Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. Richard, I understand that the Department for Transport recently announced funding allocations for the second round of the Active Travel Fund, with £800,000 on its way to Lincolnshire. As you know, the timescales were very tight for the first wave of funding, and therefore there wasn't enough time for proper consultation with stakeholders. Can you please tell us how you're planning to involve communities and stakeholders this time round, and also when the consultation period starts and ends? Thank you.
Councillor Richard Davies.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I am pleased to report that we've got just over £800,000 for the next phase of the Active Travel Fund. That said, spread over a big county like Lincolnshire, it doesn't go as far as we'd like it to, unfortunately. We've already started the consultation. We've had a series of briefings with all of the communities where we're looking to do and invest some money on active travel measures such as cycleways, parking spots, and also some footway improvements, and we will continue to do so. And of course, we'll be keeping the local county councillor right at the heart of that discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Right, the next question is Councillor Matthew Bowles to Councillor Mrs Sue Woolley. Councillor Bowles.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Councillor Woolley. On the 24th of November, I was alerted to the fact that staff at John Copeland Hospital in Gainsborough have been made aware of proposals to close and relocate a number of outpatients clinics currently operated on the site. As a result, staff had also been notified of their redeployment to other hospitals. It was made clear to staff that these changes were not COVID related and would not be temporary. I spent the following week trying to obtain some answers and clarity on the situation, but was passed from pillar to post by ULHT and LCHS, with nobody seemingly willing to discuss the issue, which obviously rang alarm bells. Eventually, last Tuesday, I secured a phone call with ULHT's Director of Finance, who told me that we are considering changing how we deliver outpatient services at some sites, although full details are not yet decided. During this call, he also wanted to speak to LCHS regarding staff redeployment and return a call the following day, last Friday. Up to this point, I have no further response or answers, which I find unacceptable. The staff on site assure me this is happening as we speak, and the local public are dismayed at the proposals to withdraw these services. Please could you offer any assistance in gaining some answers and clarity on what is happening in our local hospital? Thank you.
Councillor Woolley.
Thank you, Councillor Bowles. I think the easiest thing I could say to you is if we have a conversation out of this meeting, because I do need to go away. I hadn't heard anything about John Copeland, and as I listened to you, I would have said to you, I know that ULHT are under considerable pressure, as are LCHS, around staffing issues and whether this is a temporary measure or a more permanent one. It sounds to me from what you've said that staff feel it's more permanent. So I think we just need to find out whether it is actually COVID related. I know elsewhere COVID is playing a significant part in disrupting the staffing levels all around the county. So it could be a COVID issue, but I really would like to give you a definitive answer, and I'm happy to share that, Chairman, with the rest of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Woolley. Thank you. Right, just before we move on, could I ask members to make sure that they mute their microphones? I'm getting people's telling me that they're getting feedback, so if you could please just check that and keep a check on it. Next question then is Councillor Eddie Strangle to Councillor Nick Worth. Councillor Strangle.
Thank you very much, Chairman. My question is in regard to the Usher Gallery. Nick, I understand the City of Lincoln Council has made the decision to move the artworks and museum artefacts to Nottingham to be under the care of the City of Nottingham, even though we offered to manage the collections at no cost to them. How does this affect the Usher Gallery? Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Nickworth.
Thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Councillor Strangle, for the question there. Well, obviously, we're outraged that the artworks and collections will be moved out of Lincolnshire. City of Lincoln have made that decision. Clearly, this could have been resolved quite easily with a little flexibility on the use of the Usher Gallery to make it more sustainable. As you have said, Councillor Strangle, the cost of managing the collections would have been at no cost to the city. Interestingly, I've also been made aware that there are trusts who have been donating items to the City of Lincoln for decades and have a contract with the City of Lincoln, and yet they have never been consulted on the move to Nottingham. I find that in itself quite extraordinary. As regards the Usher, we're under Tier 3 arrangements obviously at the moment, and all museums and galleries are to remain closed. As and when we remove to Tier 2, which I hope will be not too far off, we will review the guidance and reopen sites accordingly. However, due to staffing levels needed to manage social distancing, etc., priority will obviously be given to the popular sites such as the castle and collection. The Museum of Lincolnshire Life and the Usher would come back online in accordance with our business plan, and that's likely to be next spring around April, probably in line with culture and heritage nationally. In the future, we will continue to maintain the fabric of the Usher as per our agreement with the City of Lincoln, but fully cooperate with Nottingham City or the City of Lincoln to enable them to operate in the building. So to be clear, doors will be open whenever they wish, subject to appropriate staff being provided. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Worth. Right, the next question is Councillor Kev Clark, Councillor Richard Davis. Councillor Clark.
Morning. Councillor Davis, never-ending story. Traffic issues in the south of Lincoln could and can be reduced if the Western Grove flyover is made a priority by the county. This would benefit the whole of the city. So the question really is the county going to make the flyover a priority to end the suffering of the residents of Lincoln?
Councillor Davis.
Thank you for the question. In terms of the Western Growth Corridor, I agree with you, Councillor Clark, that the City Council's plans to put all of those houses there without investing sufficiently in infrastructure is going to create a real problem. I visited the site recently with Councillor Strangle and saw for myself the problems that not only will exist in the future but are there now. I agree that I think before houses are built, the correct infrastructure needs to be in place, and I think as we see elsewhere in the county, the developer should be leading on that, and I would echo your calls for the City Council to bring that infrastructure forward.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Right, the next question is from Councillor Nigel Pepper to Councillor Nick Worth. Councillor Pepper.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and good morning to everyone. Councillor Worth, recent years have seen a number of changes in the position of Chief Fire Officer. Can you tell me what stage we are at with the management of our Fire and Rescue Service, please?
Councillor Nick Worth.
Thank you, Chairman. Happy Christmas, Nigel.
Thank you.
Anytime. As you're aware, Les Britsman left the Chief Fire Officer role to undertake a secondment opportunity within the wider County Council team. Deputy Chief Fire Officer Mark Baxter took over the interim Chief Officer role for the interim period. To support Mark and the senior leadership team, we have enrolled John Bonney to act as a strategic advisor during this period. John has many years' experience both nationally in the fire sector, including Chief Fire Officer for Hampshire Fire and Rescue. Recently has been working closely with the team and for us will be a valuable addition to Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue moving forward. I can also confirm that we'll be keeping the structure of 4 area managers for the next 12 months to give stability and capacity at that level. Yesterday, we recruited for the substantive post of Acting Chief Fire Officer, and the result of that will be announced shortly. I'm confident that the team, through Mark's leadership, will successfully lead Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue and emergency planning, not only through the ongoing COVID response, but the upcoming HMIC FRS inspection, and will continue to develop the service for the future benefit of all our communities. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Worth.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Worth. Right, the next question is Councillor Graham Cullen to Councillor Martin Hill, OBE. Councillor Cullen.
Thank you, Chairman. National Government has chosen to recognise several deprivation issues suffered by people in my town of Mablethorpe by including in the Town Funds project. The bid towards the government for this purpose highlights shortcomings in education and skills and outlines the plans to tackle them. With this council having promised my community at the time the secondary school was closed and that the site will be made available for further education purposes should they arise. So with this in mind, County Council going to stand by its original commitment to provide replacement education and schools in Mablethorpe, or is it going to take the money from the sale of the old secondary school and run and leave Mablethorpe once again in a mess? Thank you, Chairman.
Well, thank you for that, Chairman. I mean, if it's, I don't know really what to say to that. We are, we obviously are supporting education in Mablethorpe, and we are ensuring that Mablethorpe children and others are properly educated in the best schools available in the area. And there has been substantial investment in Mablethorpe over the years, both by the County Council and the local district council, indeed by government as well. And the Towns Fund is an example of that, which is obviously has been led by the East Lindsey District Council. So I don't think we are in any intention of leaving Mablethorpe in a mess, and we are making sure that the education provision for those children in the town is dealt with satisfactorily and well. So unless Councillor Bradwell has anything to add, that's all I intend to say. Thank you for the question.
Councillor Bradwell, have you anything to add?
No, I haven't, Mr. Chairman. We are working with the schools and with students and that all the time who live in Mablethorpe and that. So no, I totally agree with the leader.
Thank you, Councillor Bradwell. Right, moving on then. Councillor Mrs. Alison Austin has got a question for Councillor Colin Davey. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Davey, my question is this. In view of the most likely outcome to the current Brexit talks, are you supportive of the plans to develop Boston so that it can become the food port of the UK with a direct link with the free port of Rotterdam and enabling freight to bypass the congestion of Dover and the M25? Moreover, in the event of a favourable Midlands Connect feasibility study, do you envisage that LCC might support the development of the necessary related infrastructure? Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you very much for that question, Councillor Austin. Firstly, I would say that the port has, in my mind, underperformed for many years and it has great potential for the future. So we welcome the ambition of the port's owners to invest in their facility and provide those connections to the continent and further afield going forward. In terms of the Midlands Connect proposal, that is obviously for a wider study of transport, not just around the port, but around Boston. And as you know, with all of these studies, they normally come up with some very big ambitions and very big ideas, which require significant amounts of funding. That funding will need to be a partnership approach led by government as much as the county council. But until we see the outcomes of that study, I don't think it's right that I make any commitments or further comment on that. I'll just say this, Councillor Austin. Boston is a great opportunity. We have lived in a very uncertain year, but Brexit does present opportunities, whether there is a deal or no deal, for places like Boston. And we should move forward with optimism and ambition for the future and make sure that not just Boston, but all parts of Lincolnshire gain the benefit of our exit from the EU on the 31st of December. And we are passionate about making sure that we get the best for our county and our places in the years ahead. Thank you, Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Councillor Davey, and may I wish you a happy Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. I have a note here that Councillor Kirk's lost connection, is struggling to get back on. Trust somebody will be trying to help him. Right, we'll move on to the next question. Councillor, this is Marion Overton, MBE, to Councillor Richard Davies. Councillor Overton.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And I'd like to just say before I start, thank you to all the staff, volunteers and councillors who've done so much through this COVID period. Really impressive, and thank you for that. On my question, this current Conservative government is requiring us to get 300,000 new quality dwellings built every year. And it doesn't seem to be based on local need, but it's on the drive to increase economic activity and more tax, which is funded by an increased personal debt in mortgages. So this government is increasingly putting, on top of that, they're increasingly putting the control in the hands of developers so that they choose what to build, driven by profit rather than local need, and not even on the overall reduction of the impact of the climate change. What effect does that have on our impact? We're trying to bring the overall impact on the climate change down. I know the Central Lincolnshire Strategy Group has objected to those proposed changes in planning, but I wonder if I could have a response from Councillor Davies, I think is the right person, on how they feel about that and what are the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Overton. I'm not sure Councillor Davies is the right person. Councillor Davies? No.
I'm not good enough to pick a question of any coherence out of that, I'm afraid.
No.
Would you like me to repeat it, Chairman? I'll simplify it.
Is it, well, I don't know whether Councillor Pole or Councillor Davey are able to deal with that one.
Just to simplify, perhaps it isn't got a simple answer, but the real problem is that we are being encouraged by the government to increase development. So that does include roads, traffic and all of that. At the same time, we're also being asked, and rightly, to reduce our overall impact on the climate. Is there a solution? Thank you.
Councillor Davies, is there a or Councillor Davies?
I'll attempt something in response to that. Firstly, Councillor Overton, all development must be sustainable going forward. We should not build anything that passes a burden onto future generations, either in cost or impact, whether it's on climate or elsewhere. That's the enshrining principle of the National Planning Policy Framework, as you'll be well aware. So my personal view is that homes should be built to a much more resilient standard, whether it's against flooding or against the impacts of climate change. So we do need developers to put in proper measures, whether it's for off-grid in terms of electricity and energy supply, and also we need to make sure that they are resilient to all kinds of water, whether it's from flooding from the sea or flooding from rivers or elsewhere. So the answer is, I think there is a meeting of minds. I don't think we're there yet, but we should all work together to make sure we meet the ambition of building the homes we need for the future for our young people, and also because Lincolnshire is an attractive place for people to move to. So we want to encourage that because it helps the economy long term to improve. But we should make sure that we're not building identikit, poor quality housing that looks like it's been transplanted from the 1950s into Lincolnshire. We should build the homes of the future, fit for the future and fit for our residents. I hope that helps, Councillor Overton.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Davey, for picking that one up. Right, the next question is Councillor Lindsay Corey to Councillor Richard Davies. Councillor Corey.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank everyone at Highways for and their contractors who have worked through appalling weather at the beginning of the year, particularly when Washington Road roundabout was being dug out and constructed. And then working through 2 pandemics to ensure that the Lincoln Eastern Bypass meets our promised deadline of the end of 2020, and we're there or thereabouts now. It's this work ethic and the pre-planning and the public engagement that meant that central government had the confidence in Lincolnshire Highways that we're capable of delivering huge infrastructure projects successfully, and that ensured that we were successful in our bid for the £110 million for the North Hycombe Relief Road. So much hard work has already been done by Highways to deliver one project whilst simultaneously planning for the next. But what can you tell me about the expected timescales and phasing for the proposed work on the Hycombe Relief Road? Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Corey. Yeah, I mean, you're right, actually, on the broader issue. You know, we're currently building Lincoln Eastern Bypass, we're currently building Grantham Relief Road, and the Department for Transport have awarded us, you know, £110 million for North Hycombe, which I believe is one of the largest awards they've ever made to a local authority of this way. And it does represent a huge confidence they have in Lincolnshire County Council to deliver these schemes. So I'm really pleased that we've got that, and it's going to make a massive difference to central Lincolnshire in particular in terms of the transport and the interconnectivity as people going north-south, and the issues of the transport network from Midlands Connect have already come up, and I'm pleased that they very much supported this scheme because they recognise the importance of the A46 as a link road. In terms of the delivery of it, now we know where the money's coming from. Candidly, we're in a position to do that detailed assessment, detailed design work that will enable us to plan out the construction of the road. I'm hoping we're going to be on site in the next 3 or 4 years at the absolute latest, but I'm also at times slightly wary about being too committal because we are so early in the process as to where it'll end up. But obviously we'll be keeping you as local members and the wider authority fully informed, and I'm really excited about it. I mean, it does bring a level of headache and a few more sleepless nights for a lot of the team, I'm sure, but it shows that we're committed to developing and investing in the county's infrastructure, which has got to be key for all concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Julie Kelly to Councillor Martin Hill, OBE. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kelly, got your question, please.
Yeah, morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Obviously, this is another COVID question, but this is an event which has, never happened throughout the world. So in September, I attended a virtual meeting about the impact of the Lincoln University students coming back, because obviously Lincoln University students came back a month later, and there'd already been evidence that university students back in other towns had caused a spike in the virus. So my question is, because I represent Lincoln Park Ward, which is mainly Sincilbank and Abbey, Monks Road area, which has got a high density of students living there. I know Martin has already alluded to some measures that he may be considering putting in, but my concern is that when the students do come back, it's going to just create further problems, because you cannot expect 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds who are away from home to not go out at night, and I think that issue was never addressed. I feel very sorry for the students, but obviously I have to think of my residents as well. And, you know, I've had lots of, well, not complaints about from residents, but real concerns. So I'd like to know some concrete measures that are going to happen. I know we've got the virus now, but it's not going, the injections, whatever's going to be around in March, April time, but we can't rely on that solely. So my question is, what concrete measures could be put in place?
Thank you for that. Yes, I think you're right, Councillor Keeley, that obviously when the students came in September, it did lead to a spike in cases, not just in Lincoln, but obviously all in other university towns and cities. And obviously there was a spike which then did go down. I think the good news is that before the students went back home for their holidays last week, and before that, they all, as you're probably all well aware, they all had to be tested, and they were all asked to test. And the good news in terms of the results of that test, the incidence of positive returns was very low. So I think it's from that, it's probably fair to assume that the student population as they left Lincoln were actually not actually an issue as far as we can establish. When they come back, that is a correct issue as well, because they'll gone somewhere else. By definition, it will come back to Lincoln. It will be a staggered return, and I think some more students will actually be having more online studies. So that will also mean that probably fewer will come back, but it will be a stagger. I think the university is working very hard not to have them all appear back in Lincoln all at the same time. I know the university has a testing site on site there at the university. They are working really hard with the students to make sure when they're on the campus, they do observe the rules. But I think you were also correct in saying there is concern when they back out in the community that they are observing the rules, both in the residential areas where they have their digs, but also when they go out in the evening. I think like everything else, the vast majority of students actually are following the rules, but it's, as always, there is a minority who probably aren't. So again, referring back to the COVID marshals, which I discussed with previously with Robin Renshaw, they will be part of the solution, and the university is working really hard to actually not only advise and help students, but also put more activities on the campus for them to go there. And I know they've done a really good job actually with them. So I know there is a concern, and again, it comes back to the COVID marshals and also any local testing. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be that students are the problem. But as with all these things, we do need to keep a close eye on it. And as I've said before, the local Lincolnshire Outbreak and Engagement Board will be monitoring this very, very carefully. But certainly the university and the City Council, Public Health and ourselves have all been working very hard on this issue, because we all know it is a potential problem. So I can reassure residents that's the case. And of course, the other good news, the vulnerable will start being vaccinated after Christmas. So hopefully those people who are vulnerable will be protected. And as we know as well, that the younger you are, the less likely you are to have issues with major issues with coronavirus. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Right, the next question is Councillor Richard Buttroyd to Councillor Colin Davey. Councillor Buttroyd.
Thank you, Chairman. The footbridge over the Sally Bank drain in Kettlethorpe has been deemed unfit for use. This is due to the degradation of the steel and concrete of the bridge structure. What assurances can you give the people of Kettlethorpe that the funding will be made available so the bridge can be reinstated for use? Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Buttroyd, for your question, and thank you for the work you're doing on behalf of your community in raising this issue and pushing for a resolution to it. Let me assure you and the residents that, as you will be aware, the cost of replacing footbridges and things like that on public rights of way can be quite considerable. However, my team have now done a formal assessment of the site, and they will be putting forward a proposal to the assessment panel in January to try and secure the funding to resolve this issue. My colleague, Councillor Richard Davis, chairs that assessment panel, So hopefully we'll have some good news for you in the new year. But obviously, as you'll appreciate, we have to go through proper assessment in terms of funding allocations.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Right, the next question is Councillor Rob Parker, Councillor Martin Hill, OBE. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you. Morning, Martin.
Morning.
As we all know, Lincolnshire is currently in Tier 3, which is the very high alert status, which places serious restrictions on what people and businesses can and can't do. One such major restriction is on the hospitality sector. I'm talking essentially about bars, pubs, cafes, restaurants, which we know, with the exception of those that deliver takeaway services or delivery services, are not open. It's expected, I think it's generally accepted, that based on recent COVID figures, infection rates in Lincolnshire, that when the government do meet on the 16th of December, it's very likely that Lincolnshire will remain in Tier 3. As we know, that will mean that the hospitality will remain closed at one of the busiest times of the year, that is Christmas and New Year, when most people like to go out at least for a drink and a meal. It's accepted that such a decision into Tier 3 continuing in Lincolnshire is necessary, but nevertheless there is a role here for government to intervene with some form of support, whether it's financial or other sorts of supports. So I'm asking you as leader of the council to give a commitment that through the usual channels, which may include the LGA, to lobby government to come to the aid of bars, pubs, restaurants and cafes, to do what you can to influence government to help at this particular key time the hospitality sector in Lincolnshire.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I'm certainly more than happy to actually agree with your request that we do need to support and speak up for those businesses, and particularly in the hospitality industry. And you can only feel for all those businesses who, that, as you've said, their peak period of income, if you like, which is a pre-Christmas period, has been taken away from them, which is why we tried so hard to at least get part of Lincolnshire out of Tier 3. But I totally agree. I mean, the government has made some support available, but you're quite right. If through no fault of their own, the hospitality industry has been suffering in terms of that, and I think that it's probably right that some will never return, but it's only right that the government makes sufficient support available. There has been some support made available, but I don't think it's really enough in the circumstances. So I'm more than happy to lobby in all sorts of ways to do that, so that they are supported even more. And I think that's only the right thing to do in these circumstances. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hill. Right, we'll move on. Councillor Colin Matthews has a question for Councillor Colin Davey. Councillor Matthews.
Thank you, Chair, and happy Christmas to everybody. Councillor Davey, the Chancellor's talked a lot about levelling up our economy in his recent statement. Would you be kind enough to explain in simple terms what that could mean for our county, and in particular what that could mean for the Lindsey Coast? In that statement, so that's my first part, and in the statement he announced a £4 billion package to support the levelling up of regional economies. Could you advise what work is underway by your team at LCC to ensure that we're in front of this competitive process, and what you think the timelines are for bids by Lincolnshire and Greater Lincolnshire to be made to government? Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews, for the question, and I will give you a fairly lengthier answer than normal. I mean, firstly, levelling up is a key priority of this government. It's taken a long time for Whitehall to properly recognise that too much investment has gone into areas such as the South East, and they're now committed to changing the way that they invest in our country by regions. Either we take advantage of the opportunity or we'll look back on further years of missed opportunity. So I'm determined we're not going to miss the opportunity. Firstly, the Team Lincolnshire partnership, which we facilitate, is actively promoting Lincolnshire as a location for people and businesses to move out of the major cities and conurbations. Our estate agent and commercial partners in Team Lincolnshire now tell us on a weekly basis about the successes they have achieved in selling property to people and businesses from London, Birmingham, Leeds and further afield. So the Levelling Up Fund, that £4 billion pot, provides an excellent opportunity to attract investment into projects that will help us to be rebalanced against the national average. Projects of up to £20 million can be supported, and the government want to invest in projects that can be delivered quickly when they publish the fund's prospectus, probably in January of next year. And we've had plenty of great examples of the council being nimble and attracting funding if we deliver quickly. And the recent allocation of a further £5 million to the Holbeach Food Enterprise Zone is a good example. And also the work we do in highways, as Councillor Davies said earlier, around the North Highcombe Relief Road. £110 million there is a significant vote of confidence in Lincolnshire. But firstly, for me, the ingredients of a high quality, nimble project are a transformational idea, a persuasive and articulated business case, and a team that can hit the ground running. These projects will have to be delivered by 2024. So I've already instructed the team in my part of the organisation to prepare a long list of schemes that the executive can prioritise, and I'm working with the leader and my executive colleagues to ensure that there is finance in place to prepare the business cases properly for those priority projects. And a small amount of investment now will lead to significant projects for the council, and more importantly, the benefits not just for the residents of the coast, but across the whole county. I am certain that this fund, alongside the Towns Fund, the Shared Prosperity Fund that is coming, and the move away from strategic economic plans to local industrial strategy and funding, will rebalance the local economy and support the coast to grow in a way that we all wish, Colin. So happy Christmas to you.
Thank you, Colin. Happy Christmas to you. Excellent answer.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Right, and nicely timed. We're on to Councillor Mrs. Sue Rawlins to Councillor Mrs. Sue Woolley. Councillor Rawlins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone, and good morning to Sue. Regarding the Parish Council's website upgrades, and also the requirement to convert a certain amount of documents there too, I would just like to ask Sue for an update of where we are on that, because I know that's been a major concern to a lot of our parish councils and their clerks. But perhaps before Sue answers my question, if I could just take this opportunity to thank a Sudbrook resident, Peter Langford, who kindly offered to set up websites for Sudbrook and Greetwell parish councils. And having created those two, he opened up his offer, this is all voluntary, to assist any other parishes that wanted some help. So I don't think he expected the response, but within a couple of days he'd received 30 requests for assistance, now totaling 52, and he was nearing the end of them. He's worked tirelessly on the websites, conducting Zoom meetings with clerks and councillors, and he's been very patient, has been reported to me by the clerk of Sudbrook Parish Council. And he's also at the moment putting together a guide of instructions for clerks on different items on the website. So I would like to convey our thanks, if I may, to Peter Langford, and perhaps at some point in the future, so we could put that into a written response and provide the details.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor Rawlins. Yes, as you already pointed out, we're having the big move that's taking place at the moment. We've got around 40% of our parish councils who have now successfully migrated to their new websites, and then we've got other parishes that are moving some of their information as well, so that they can continue to keep that information. But what we've also done is we've got about 15 parishes that have taken up the offer of some help just to move them, because they've either got a lot of information or they simply haven't got the time. And so we've got officers in place who are helping those councils as we speak. And then what we're also doing is you've probably received an email from both officers, and indeed you'll get a follow-up one from me as well, that is pointing out those parish councils in your patch that are still to migrate, and do they need any help, and can we help them? And then we're going to really work very hard, or officers already are doing, but to get everybody moved across by the end of the year. So it's going well. There's a lot to do, but it's all pointing in the right direction. And if you could just sort of farm that dear Mr. Langford out, I'm sure there's lots of places that would love his help. We're extremely grateful to him. Thank you very much indeed. Please convey my thanks.
I certainly will, Sue. Thank you once again. Happy Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woolley. I'm sure we're all very grateful to to Peter Langford, and yeah, so I would add my thanks to those that have already been expressed. Right, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, but before we move on to that rest of the agenda, I would like to remind you that as members are unable to view the electronic clock, I will be timing the speeches, and it will indicate when your time is almost up. However, I do expect some level of self-regulation by members in terms of their speeches. Normal time limits will still apply. So we'll move on then to the next item, item 7, the Greater Lincolnshire Joint Strategic Oversight Committee. Report by the Chief Executive has been circulated. Do I have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Hill is going to move this.
Thank you. I'd like to move this item, which is, as members will have read in the report, is this Joint Oversight Committee, which is a joint committee of the lead of the County Council, North East Lincolnshire Council and North Lincolnshire Council, plus with the addition of the chairman of the Greater Lincolnshire LEP Board. And the purpose of this board is to actually continue to liaise with North and North East Council, Lincolnshire councils, with ourselves and the LEP, to actually see what other areas of shared interest we can progress, particularly in those services which we share with them in terms of responsibility, for example, adult care, children's services, highways and things like that. So I think there is enough political appetite to see what we can do more together. And I think there's also an appetite across Lincolnshire to keep promoting the Greater Lincolnshire concept, which I think we all agree with, to make sure that Greater Lincolnshire is to be seen on the national stage as a distinct identity. I mean, there is the devolution agenda seems to have gone right onto the back burner, if indeed it's still on the stove. And the government has indicated the earliest the devolution white paper will appear is next summer. But my political view on it is I think the government's getting very cold feet on this, so I'm not anticipating much to happen on that agenda anyway. But I think it's important that we will continue to work with North and North East, and at the same time we'll also collectively work. The 10 leaders of the 10 councils in Lincolnshire, Greater Lincolnshire, will continue to work together as well. And members will also note within the report that it will be a formal committee which will meet publicly. But also, and it will only have the power to recommend back to the respective councils any actions they wish to take. So there is a fallback position where members of the individual councils can also do that. And I think we're already talking about some sort of high-profile posts which potentially could be shared across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire. So I recommend this to you, that it is another step in making sure that we are seen on the national stage as an important player in the future of this country. So I move the paper, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. I believe that we have a seconder as Councillor Davey. Councillor Davey? Councillor Davey.
Chairman.
Sorry, who's that?
Councillor Paul, I'll second the motion, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Thank you for that. Right, we have Councillor Marfleet wishing to speak. So, Councillor Marfleet.
Good morning, Chairman, and thank you. Yes, I welcome this from two angles, really, locally and nationally. Locally, they are our neighbours, and they're also my neighbours to my division. My border runs up to their border, and little things like buses. When you live in Halton-le-Clay and you're right on the edge of Grimsby and Cleethorpes, there needs to be better interaction. And it is little things like buses being able to divert, efficiencies of even refuge collections, hospital services, because that's a different boundary, so that has an impact. You know, sometimes they can't just access Grimsby and they have to go off to Grantham because of the boundaries that are within that. So I welcome it from a local perspective. From a national perspective, it's also very important. Lincolnshire has a huge agriculture and food manufacturing industry. We have our ports there, and so it allows us great opportunity for import, exports, and we working with North East and North Lincolnshire from distribution, transport, roads. It just makes so much sense, and I think looking forward and going forward, the better we can build this partnership, the better we will all be. So I welcome it and think it is very good news. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marfleet. I now have Councillor Robert Parker who's wishing to speak. Councillor Parker.
Thank you. I want to begin by making the point that from the Humber to the Wash, there are 10 local authorities. This paper refers to just 3, although Councillor Hill did mention that there is work already going on and has been for some time, bringing all 10 councils together when it comes to local government reorganisation. As he said, that matter is for the long grass. So this Joint Strategic Oversight Committee has been set up to look at, as it says, at strategy. But one of the points that I want to make is that the whole question of strategy in relation to economic development actually covers all 10 councils. I think that it really does need mentioning that paragraph 1.4 on page 72, for those that are interested, makes the point that collective focus must be given to how we ensure and deliver economic growth, improve connectivity and level up our economy. I'm sure that's the argument that would also be endorsed strongly by people like Craig Leyland and Gary Porter and Rick Metcalf, who are working just as hard and just as effectively on trying to deliver economic growth for their particular parts of Lincolnshire. I think it's right that their contributions should be embraced and be part of a 10 council Greater Lincolnshire Joint Strategic Oversight Committee and not just 3. The paper itself doesn't mention why only 3 upper tier, in inverted commas, councils are getting together, and doesn't say anything why not the districts as well. There is also no mention, no commitment to reporting discussions, although Councillor Hill did add to it by saying that the meetings are going to be held in public. What I'm interested in, and what the Labour group are interested in, is how will members of the council, this council, know what's going on except through the media? There is no role here demonstrated at all for scrutiny. Scrutiny is an important feature of the relationship between those that take decisions, which they then take back to their local authority areas, but it's at the strategic level that scrutiny is just as important as it is at the detail level. It's for these reasons that at the moment Labour councillors can't support these proposals in the shape that is being presented to us, and will be voting against.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. I'll move on now then to Councillor Robin Renshaw, who's indicated next. Councillor Renshaw.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I reaffirm what Councillor Parker said, that the inequality among representation for our residents is totally unequal, and and that's probably the main reason why we can't support this. And let's be realistic. The government's got bigger fish to fry. They might even want to get Brexit done, and so it's going to be at least 2 years before we get any movement in the devolution agenda. And you know, it's something that I can see the benefit in, but it's certainly not going to be dealt with at the present rate of progress. So for that reason, I will be against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Renshaw. Councillor Bradwell, Councillor Patricia Bradwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I was just going to say that actually, you know, this is about moving our relationship on with North and North East Lincolnshire. We have for many years worked with them, and being three upper tier authorities, we do provide lots more services that we can jointly work together on. And I know across the country we've not had a problem here in Lincolnshire, but there are particular jobs within the upper tier authorities that we can sometimes struggle to recruit to, and actually working together, I think that, you know, we can alleviate all those problems happening if one of the say North or North East or ourselves, you know, we couldn't recruit to. So I think this is a very positive move forward. It's not, you know, as I say, we have been working with them for quite a while. As Councillor Marfleet says, you know, we border those two authorities, and I know particularly with home care, we've been working with North and North East, because actually we all know that someone can live at an end of a road, and it could be in North Lincolnshire, yet they come to us for services. So I think there's lots that we can gain by working with these two authorities. And as the leader has said, that's not to say we're not going to be working with our district councils, but I think as the three upper tier authorities, we do provide much more in services, like we said, you know, there is the coroner's service and lots of others. So I just think it is worth investigating, and the more that we can actually work together, I think that can only be for the good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bradwell. Councillor, Mrs. Alison Austin next. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chairman. Just putting a few notes in front of me to keep me on target. Right, in general, I've no immediate objections and welcome a collective approach if it's for the benefit of all the area. And I'm mindful that where I live, we're always on the periphery, whatever, you know, whatever the area is. So that's something that I accept. I very much echo what Councillor Parker said regarding scrutiny. It's important that all discussions are open. You know, recently, earlier this year, I've lived locally where the lack of openness initially caused distrust, because to those who aren't in the know, you know, what is happening. And any strategic matter like this, all right, there has to be something perhaps that is it doesn't want everything to necessarily be laid on the table immediately, but that there must be openness in general, because if you want everyone to be on board, then have that openness and, where appropriate, scrutiny. We don't want any part of the area, whichever part of Greater Lincolnshire it is, to feel marginalised. We can't work in silos, but as I said, and I repeated, we must work for the benefit of everybody. So I think perhaps I speak on a slightly lower scale from the experience that we've had locally in Boston, which was distrust when a strategic alliance was announced out of the blue. So please, please, can I beg Councillor Hill that everyone is kept on board? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. I now have Councillor Colin Davey who wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I really warmly welcome this paper. I sit on the LEP board with my colleagues, the leaders of North and North East Lincolnshire. We have to create a strategic view of things, and this paper covers the services that the County Council and North East Links do separately, but could be done better by joining together. And the leaders made it clear that these decisions or will be made by the council, by the county council. They're recommendations that will come from this joint committee to each of our authorities. So it will still go through the member profile and the member process of decision making. And that's correct. You know, we have strategic alliances between districts in other parts of the county. And I welcome those as well, because it is about, you know, driving out the savings and making sure we deliver better quality services to people who ultimately are our masters. The taxpayers of Lincolnshire deserve and expect us to work together with our partners and deliver the benefits for them. They pay our wages and they pay the wages, and they should have the trust in us to deliver the services that they require in the most cost efficient and organised way possible. In terms of the economy doesn't do boundaries or geographical locations. It operates against the wider piece. So it's fantastic that the chair of the LEP will be taking part in this joint committee, because I believe that to get government to understand our message, to understand our place, we need to speak with a much more united voice, and we need to work together to prove to government that we're capable of delivering the big projects that are going to transform our place in the years ahead. We've got to get away from this kind of parochial discussion about little bits of the place, and we need to talk much more widely about the benefits of investing in Greater Lincolnshire, investing in Lincolnshire, and delivering services that are fit for all of our people, no matter where they live. And I think this is a good starting point to have a joint oversight committee, and I not just warmly welcome it, but strongly support it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor, Mrs. Marianne Overton is next, please. Councillor Overton.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is a very interesting document, and I think the history is not particularly helpful, as Councillor Austin mentioned with previous things. And I can see the sense, if this is the same as the LEP, and we're talking about council issues, and maybe it's to some extent shifting the power from the LEP to the local government. I'm not sure. That hasn't actually been said, but that would, for me, be a good thing. The issue about the involvement in all councils, I think that's worrying that we haven't got all closely engaged, because what I also worry about is certainly the scrutiny and the involvement of councillors, and how many of the briefings where the decisions might actually be, the consensus is formulated, are not open to the public necessarily, and not necessarily all of that information and support in the decision making. And so that's why I think it's quite difficult to create a separate body where our business is being discussed, the things that our councillors are responsible for. So that worries me, that things are happening somewhere else. The second concern is about making sure that our resources are spent for Lincolnshire. And if our officers are spending a lot of time having to think about how to support the economic development or the adult care services in Grimsby and North Lincolnshire, I'm not sure that we can afford that. I think it's very important that our staff are focused on what's best for our residents, and that's what they pay for. That's what our residents pay for. So I am a bit concerned that there's particularly with free ports, you know, there may be a lot of work that's got to be done in those other council areas, which would take our staff away from where I would like to see them working. On the cross borders and working across borders, absolutely, and we do a lot of that, and I think it's important that we do. And I've been one of the biggest proponents of working cross-party on waste sites, because we have Nottinghamshire so close to us. So yes, Councillor Marflick mentioned about his border. If you're talking about working cross borders, there are others to work across as well, and you know, that may be something to think about. But they don't need a particular formal body. What they do need is some real politics where people really discuss things and come to grips with issues and work well together. It doesn't need a formal body which could drag resources away from Lincolnshire. I know you'll say that it brings them in, but I'm yet to be convinced on that. The main point, I think, is to make sure that whatever we do, and I am concerned about a formal arrangement in this direction. It pulls us too far, to my mind, in one direction. But whatever we do, we need to make sure, as Alison Austin said, Councillor Austin said, that we do need to make sure we bring people on board with us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Overton. On to Councillor Chris Brewis now, and I've got Councillor Angela Newton next. You was raising a hand, Councillor Newton, so I wasn't picking you up on the in the chat. So if you could indicate speak in the chat box, please. That's the way I'm monitoring people that want to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And speaking from the only council division in the country which has postal addresses in 3 counties and 2 regions, I know a bit about borders. And I am all for cooperating, and it doesn't seem Colin Davies said a lot of what I was going to say, and I think that when South Holland and East Lindsey began to work together very seriously a few years ago, it was looked on as revolutionary. Well, maybe now it's about time it wasn't so revolutionary. We've also got an awful lot of national weight in our wider county. If we look at Felixstowe and Immingham, they're probably the 2 most significant ports in the country. And it doesn't seem yesterday that I asked a network, it's a bit longer than yesterday, when I asked a network rail representative if I could have proved that a proper freight link from Felixstowe north towards Immingham would have saved us having to spend tens of millions of pounds on the M11, the A14 and the various other roads to take the enormous amount of freight on roads and our potholes filled as a result. The answer I got was that nobody does joined up thinking like that. Well, it's about time we did do joined up thinking. And I'm very much in favour of the principle of this, but I do think that if we can carry all of us on board with it, everybody, I think all members, I believe we have a much better chance, speaking with unanimity, of being listened to and attracting the necessary investment that will be needed to ensure that on a wider scale we actually set an example of how people can work across borders. We could be a groundbreaking, this could be a groundbreaking initiative which gets noticed nationally, and isn't that what we're trying to do? So strength to your arm, but keep us all please informed and please on board. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brewis. Now we've got Councillor Angela Newton, who has been indicated to speak. Councillor Newton, I'm sorry if I didn't pick you up before.
Okay. Sorry, I tried to press the chat button, but I managed to disconnect. So I lost you for a minute, and so I thought, well, I'm not going to try that again. So I apologise, Chairman. Right, yeah. Well, in principle, it's a good idea, but it's only a good idea if the whole county is included. And it reads to me as a bit of an exclusive paper. And I did take a sort of legal view on of why the leader thought it was should be an executive function. And I feel that there should be some dialogue between the district leaders. Our district, my ward doesn't, but my district does. It borders Peterborough, Greater Peterborough, and other areas. And some of us have more links actually, probably with the south, that area, than we do with North Links and North East Links. In fact, I suspect we all do. So I do believe that our district leaders should be considered. I've never heard it mentioned at leaders' meetings that this has been considered by group leaders, and I'm concerned that there's not going to be probably enough scrutiny before decisions are made. And if you alienate your district leaders, then you're not going to get on board. You're not going to get cooperation when you want to talk about devolution and reorganisation. So I just have a little fear here that we should include. I know you don't. Committees of one are the best. They're the ones I prefer, maybe two, and big ones are not good. But I do believe you ought to have at least one district leader representing the other leaders if you're not going to consult them formally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newton. Move on then to Councillor Tom Ashton, who's next to speak. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I welcome and support this paper and report. It's only by working together, as other speakers have already indicated, it's only by working together with partners and neighbours that we continue to make the savings and the service improvements that we're all elected to this place in order to help deliver. It's only by making those savings that we can preserve the structures of local government, which we currently have, and which after 47 years broadly continues to work quite well across Lincolnshire. And it's proving to government in a way that we can save money without and to continue being viable and improve making those improvements without any kind of root and branch overhaul. And I think it has been well demonstrated over recent years that this is certainly the way to go, as Councillor Bruce has indicated that all those years ago when East Lindsey and South Holland started to work together, it was indeed revolutionary. It has been proven over that time that savings can be made. Capacity, economies of scale, as I think what Councillor Bradwell was referring to, is absolutely the case with the strategic alliance that has been formed between the Borough of Boston and East Lindsey. It makes sense to share officer resources. It makes sense to share staff. It makes sense to share experience and not simply to look only within one's own silo. So this is absolutely the right thing to do, and it has my full support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Now I have Councillor Nick Worth, who's indicated to speak. Councillor Worth.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's important probably to note that this isn't a decision-making committee. I think with the theory of this is absolutely fine. Chris Brewis, Tom Ashton have mentioned South Holland and East Lindsey, but let's not forget we've been sharing services on a small scale compared to this in South Holland for quite a number of years, and it proves to us that we can make substantial savings, but not just savings. We can actually provide a better service for our residents. I think what this is doing at an upper tier level is looking at county council services, which could be shared at that level. I can speak specifically about the coroner's service because we have been speaking to North and North East Lincolnshire for a few years now, actually, about opportunities, should they arise, as to how we could share the coronial service there to make it more efficient for us, to make it, it does cost us quite a lot of money, how we can make that more efficient and more cost effective, but provide a really good service for our residents. And that's just one of a number of services that at a county level we could provide. And so, yeah, why wouldn't you, I think is the answer question I would put. It makes sense, but I would emphasise it's not a decision-making meeting, so it's got to come through the county council and be open and transparent in that way. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Worth. Now move on to Councillor Paul Skinner, who's indicated. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm obviously quite keen on alliance and partnership working. As Chair of Flood and Water, the benefits of partnership working, the capacity, the expertise, that's really good. But most of those points have been made. But I'm also quite for gaining back the traditional Lincolnshire borders. I know we're calling it Greater Lincolnshire, but really it's Lincolnshire. So thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Skinner. Now move on to Councillor Key, who's indicated to speak. Councillor Key.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I just wonder on this paper, I think lots of people are in favour of it, and there's some others that obviously have got concerns. I'm just wondering, maybe a simpler solution might be that the Conservative group that this decision will be made by on one side and have the other 14 members of council on the other side scrutinising it. I think that might be a potential way around it. I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Key. Now move on to Councillor Kirk. Councillor Kirk has indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to echo some of the comments that Councillor Davies made a few moments ago. Most of our residents, and indeed all our businesses, do not recognise borders. They work, they live in Lincolnshire. So anything that does what they require, which is to give the best quality services at the lowest possible cost. That's what our residents want, that's what our business wants. And if this is a vehicle to achieve that, then I think it should be fully supported. I take on board the comments of Councillor Newton about the scrutiny, but Councillor Worth has made it quite clear, as did the leader, that this is just an advisory body. It will just be exploring opportunities to bring these back to council to vote on. So I don't see there's any risks or any dangers. And in fact, I can't see anything for benefits, for not just for this council, but for the other two as well involved in this process. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Now move on to Councillor Bowles, as indicated to speak, and I think that's the last indication I've got, Councillor Bowles, and then I go to Councillor Hill to sum up. Councillor Bowles.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I do broadly support these plans for the partnership working and the closer working, especially from a Gainsborough point of view. I think many of my residents would consider themselves more aligned to Scunthorpe and those sort of areas, in terms of travelling for shopping, working, across the borders there. We are a lot closer aligned to that side, so I do welcome, that sort of suggestion of closer working. And the perfect example will be public transport and stuff like that as well across those borders would be, something really important for Gainsborough. But I would support the point put forward by Councillor Mrs Newton, I think it was, regarding whether it would be possible to have one representative representing the district councils within this group. That would be a suggestion I would support, but broadly speaking, I do support the principles behind what's been suggested and looking to do. Thank you.
Right, I'm going to move to Councillor Hill now, Councillor Martin Hill, to sum up, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just offer some reassurance to those people who have got concerns about this. I think the issue about the decision making, it has no power. I think somebody said moving power somewhere else. Well, this this joint committee will have no power of its own at all, apart from the power to recommend. And it's just to remind members, it will meet in public, so everything when the meetings happen, it will all be there for all to be seen, and obviously the scrutiny will be involved with any decisions that then have to be referred back to the respective councils. And obviously I do try my best to keep certainly group leaders informed of, informally informed of what is going on, and that will be part of that process. So I can assure you that I will be open as possible with what sort of discussions are having on the basis of confidentiality. So at least that can be cascaded through the rest of the council. I was a bit surprised that Councillor Overton talked about somewhere else. Well, there is no somewhere else for me. We are talking about Lincolnshire, and I thought we all thought that Greater Lincolnshire, traditional Lincolnshire, was something we all supported. So this isn't a somewhere else argument. It's all about how we promote our great county and make it as strong and as effective as possible. I note the point about district councils. I just remind members that I thought I made it clear, but probably not clear enough. This is not instead of the current arrangements. It will complement the current arrangements. So we already have a joint committee structure with all the 10 councils in Lincolnshire, specifically for devolution. And this isn't particularly about devolution, this proposal, but also we have for years now, ever since I've been leader, we have regularly met with the district councils in Lincolnshire on a quarterly basis, where we continue to discuss things regularly. And the chief execs, I know, also with the district and county council, just have regular meetings, I believe weekly, but obviously are in conversation with each other, probably even more often than that. So this is not it's not a either or, it's a complementary situation. And in terms of leaders, yes, I have before the papers came out, I did make sure that all the leaders, I indicated all the district leaders were informed of what the proposal was, and I've had no one has come back to me saying with any concerns about what we're doing. So I think they all understand the concept of Greater Lincolnshire. So I do think it is the right thing to do. And I think we should do that. And it is all about sharing those upper tier services and promoting Greater Lincolnshire. So I commend the recommendations to the council.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, now what I'm going to move on to is to the vote. I was normally asked for councillors abstaining to please abstain. Type abstain, but listening to the debate, I think we're going to have some councillors against, and if we've got anybody against, we've got to move to a roll call vote. So could I just ask if we've got anybody who wishes to vote against, please type against in the meeting chat, just save a little bit of time. We don't need to go any further. We've got somebody who's indicating against, Councillor Renshaw, and Councillor Overton. So we're going to move on straight away without any further ado to a roll call vote, please. So I'll hand you over to Nigel West. Nigel.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll call out to the councillors' name in alphabetical order, and if they could say for, against, or abstain. Councillor Adams.
For.
Councillor Aaron. Councillor Aaron.
He's not in attendance, is he?
He said for. I thought I heard him say for.
Yes, he did.
Sorry.
Yeah, for.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Austin.
For.
Councillor Bowles.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Bowkett.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Bradwell.
For.
Councillor Brailsford.
For.
Councillor Brewis.
For.
Councillor Bridges.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Brockway.
For.
Councillor Brooks.
For.
Councillor Boothroyd.
For.
Councillor Corey.
For.
Councillor Clark.
Against.
Councillor Cook.
For.
Councillor Cooper. Councillor Cooper. Councillor Coupland.
For.
Councillor Cullen.
Against.
Councillor Davey.
For.
Councillor Davies.
For.
Councillor Dobson.
For.
Councillor Fido.
For.
Councillor Fleetwood.
For.
Councillor Foulkes.
For.
Councillor Griggs. Councillor Griggs. Councillor Grocott. Sorry, was that Councillor Griggs?
It was, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Grocott.
For.
Councillor Hayes.
For.
Councillor Hill.
For.
Councillor Kendrick.
For.
Councillor Key.
Against.
Councillor Killy.
Against.
Councillor Kirk.
For.
Councillor Lawton. Councillor Lawton.
Don't think she's here.
Councillor Macy.
For.
Councillor Marfleet.
For.
Councillor Matthews.
For.
Councillor Morn.
For.
Councillor McNally.
For.
Councillor Mrs Newton.
For.
Councillor Mrs Overton.
Against.
Councillor Oxby.
For.
Councillor Parker.
Against.
Councillor Parkin. Councillor Parkin.
For.
Councillor Pepper.
For.
Councillor Ferrison Williams.
For.
Councillor Pole.
For.
Councillor Mrs Rawlins.
For.
Councillor Christopher Reid.
For.
Councillor Robert Reid.
For.
Councillor Renshaw.
Against.
Councillor Rowe.
For.
Councillor Skinner.
For.
Councillor Mrs Sneath.
For.
Councillor Councillor Spratt.
For.
Councillor Stokes.
For.
Councillor Storer.
For.
Councillor Strangle.
For.
Councillor Mrs Talbot.
For.
Councillor Thompson.
For.
Councillor Trollope-Malou.
For.
Councillor Turner. Councillor Turner. Councillor Whittington.
For.
Councillor Woolley. Mrs Woolley.
For.
Councillor Linda Wotton.
For.
Councillor Ray Wotton.
For.
Councillor Worth.
For.
Councillor Young.
For.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you. That's carried then. So thank you for that. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda then, which is item 8: political proportionality and allocation of seats to committees and subcommittees. This is a report by the Executive Director responsible for democratic service and has been circulated. Is there a proposer and a seconder? I think we've got Councillor Brockway.
Yes, Chairman, proposing it. This paper comes forward when a member changes political affiliation and there's a redistribution of seats just to maintain political proportionality. And we're asked to vote on that and to agree the allocation of seats where there's not much change. But also on this occasion, we have to confirm the opposition group now changes to the independent group from the Labour group. So we're voting on 2 recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockway. Have I got a seconder? I think Angela Newton.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to second that and welcome Bill Aaron back to where he belongs and say there's space if there's any more discontent. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newton, for that. I will then ask, are there any speakers? If anybody would like to speak on this, if not, I'll move straight to the vote. I've got nobody indicating, so we'll move on to the vote. So can I ask, are there any councillors abstaining? To type speak in the, or to type abstain in the chat box, please.
On showing, Chairman.
No, there's nobody indicating. All right, if there's any, have we got anybody who is against? If you could type against in the chat box, please.
On showing, Chairman.
There's no indication there, so that means that the vote that it's clearly carried. So I will say that is unanimously carried.